this is my review of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Okay, so this episode actually marks the return of Veldora and Rimuru laying the groundwork to actually try and take down Clayman. So, yeah, it starts off with this episode with Veldora actually taking a human form as he did in the end of the last episode and the recap. And I actually failed to actually picture him in the recap for the recap episode, so I'm just gonna picture him here. So. Yeah, he's a human now. He takes thanks to Rimuru, he actually winds up taking a human form and is right away it's apparent that he's a very demanding the presence kind of demanding the presence of the room kind of guy. He's very much bombastic and very much demands your attention. It's very interesting. But in any case, Veldora is just really proud about the fact that he managed to get out of limited imprisonment and is proud to serve Rimuru. But Rimuru just kind of points out that he feels like he's going a little bit overboard, which Veldora kind of gets a little bit upset about because Rimuru is treating him so coldly, especially since they're BFFs and they're supposed to be best friends. So Rimuru just apologizes and then congratulates Veldora on actually escaping and is glad to have him back. And then is then curious and wonders if Veldora has actually gained any skills himself. And we already know this, but he reiterates this for Rimuru since he wasn't there at the time. Veldora then proceeds to explain that he actually gained the ultimate skill Faust. Which Rimuru is proud of since and realizes should have been obvious since his great sage evolved into Raphael and obviously gained the ability and obviously gained some higher sentience as well. And Raphael does confirm this, but then also confirms that because of a limited imprisonment and because Veldora has actually broken out of his unlimited imprisonment. Rimuru actually gained an additional 2 skills: the ultimate skill Uriel and the ultimate skill Veldora, which I don't know what either of those do, but they sound interesting. And Rimuru after realizing that he now has 4 skills now, Veldora actually comes over and tells them that they're now basically invincible best friends forever. And Rimuru even remarks that he feels like he got some of his mannerisms from a manga. But in any case, they bump fists and then proceed to go back to town. But before they actually leave the cave, Veldora actually decides to take a big deep breath because it's been a while since he's had any fresh air. He's been stuck in that cave for God knows how long and has been inside Rimuru's body for the better part of 2 years. So. In that time, Rimuru he's actually very much missed the great outdoors and hasn't actually been able to go outside. Basically, he's been stuck inside for however long he's been trapped. So obviously, the first thing he's going to do is take a deep breath. But as they're getting ready to go back to town, Rimuru tells Veldora to actually try and do something about his aura since it's going to scare a lot of people off. And Veldora, remembering a technique he picked up, actually uses that to actually minimize his aura to make it less obvious that he's a true dragon. And when Rimuru compliments him on it, he merely remarks that he got it from some sacred text, but Rimuru quickly puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that he just read some more manga and actually figured out a technique that he wanted to try. So, with that, they actually go back to town, and everybody is a little bit excited to see Rimuru because they haven't seen him in forever. So they go to embrace him and hug him and point out that he's been gone, but at which point Rimuru then proceeds to explain himself and explain what happened. So he then proceeds to reintroduce everybody to Veldora, explaining how Veldora has taken a human form in hopes that they'll continue to be his friend because he's a little bit shy, which Veldora then quips back with, pointing out that he's not shy, it's just that most people who see him don't live very long, or at least according to Veldora, although admittedly he is shy and there's kind of a bit of truth to both of those. But But after introducing Veldora, Rimuru is met with blank stares because because his followers and friends don't fully believe that the person they're seeing in front of them is actually Veldora. It isn't until Trainee shows up and greets Veldora like an old friend that they finally realize that they are indeed witnessing Veldora. And by the way, I should mention that apparently Veldora took Trainee and her sisters in, and as payment for that, and as kind of to repay the favor for that, they've actually been looking over his forest while he was away. And after realizing that he is actually Veldora, they all proceed to bow and kneel in reverence and declare their undying loyalty to Veldora, pointing out that they're happy he's finally returned. At which point everybody proceeds to ask what exactly Veldora's relationship with Rimuru is, and Veldora very, very adamantly declares that Rimuru is his best and sworn friend. It's a very funny and dynamic scene. And throughout this entire sequence, Rimuru is just completely embarrassed because obviously Veldora is very bombastic. He's very full of life and is very energetic and excitable. So obviously Rimuru is a little bit embarrassed that Veldora is singing his praises so highly. But in any case, after everybody celebrates the return of Veldora and everybody obviously Rigor then then asks the question of why Veldora actually disappeared. But then realizes that Rimuru most likely had something to do with it, and that he actually showed up after Veldora disappeared from their presence. And Rimuru confirms all this, pointing out that he didn't want anybody to know that what had happened to Veldora until after he had successfly gotten Veldora out. Pointing out that if he had, there would have been a big target painted on his back, and everybody kind of accepts that, pointing out that he did the right thing, and they're just glad to have Veldora back. At which point, Shuna walks up and tells Rimuru that the feast they prepared for his return is actually ready. And at which point he then proceeds to start the evening off with a toast, pointing out that they've been through some hard times, but that doesn't really matter right now, and that they should celebrate. And they do. Everybody gets drunk off their ass. And they have hangovers the next morning. I wish I was making that up. Several of them actually drink themselves into a stupor. Veldora proceeds to entertain everybody about and regale them with some of his stories about times when he was a dragon. But there is one little funny gag in here where Shion actually does prepare some cooking for Rimuru and Benimaru. And obviously they don't want to. So Benimaru is obviously the one being punished because he told Shion that her cooking tastes like shit and tried to use that as a code word to get Rimuru in trouble. So Benimaru points out that if he's going down, he's taking Rimuru with him. And Rimuru is quick to point out, once they're served, that Shion he quickly points out that she's a horrible cook. He's plain and simple. Because as he points out, not only does she not use a kitchen knife, instead using her personal sword Hercules Edge. But in addition to that, she left all of the ingredients whole in the bowl for the most part because of that. So she doesn't actually cut anything up when she puts them in. But in any case, after Rimuru and Benimaru realize that there's really no changing her mind on this, they decide to actually eat up, with Rimuru declaring he's a demon lord, he can take it, and they both realize that they'll probably get poison resistance as a plus anyway, so they might as well. So they eat the food, and so to both of their surprises, it's delicious. And Shion later then begins to explain why. As it turns out, Shion, as part of her evolution and revival, she actually gained a unique skill called Master Chef, which turns everything delicious as she imagines it, regardless of whether or not she actually knows how to cook it. So yeah, she kind of learns a bit of a shortcut on how to actually cook. She never actually learns how. She just gains a magic skill that enables her to make anything she wants delicious. without having to actually know how to actually prepare the food she's making. And while Rimuru and Benimaru are kind of moved to tears, with Benimaru declaring that now they don't have to die, they're more than happy to eat it, pointing out that while that it's very delicious, although as they point out, the appearance wise, it still doesn't look very good. And after that, they point out a very valuable lesson that yes, it can taste good, but appearance is just as good. So yeah, Shion may be able to cook now to an extent, but she still doesn't know how to properly prepare food. She still doesn't know how to make it look nice on a plate. So yeah, I mean, character development and all that. She learned how to cook. She gained the ability to cook. She just doesn't know how to make it look appetizing. So yeah, character development. But in case, the next morning, after, again, everybody drank themselves into that stupor, as I said, but Rimuru then proceeds to lay out his plans for how to actually continue forward. But before he does any of that, he introduces everybody to Diablo and explains how he's actually made him a secondary secretary to Shion, and even asks her to actually help him learn the ropes and learn how to become a proper secretary, which she happily agrees to. And then after explaining that, he then proceeds to temporarily promote Gabiru to head of development, pointing out that Gabiru is, well, again, it is going to be a temporary position. He does point out that he's counting on Gabiru to actually be able to get it done, and trusts him to actually succeed in his new position. And Gabiru is moved to tears and points out that he will be more than happy to help in any capacity he can. At which point Rimuru then proceeds to lay out his plans. His first and foremost thing he's going to do is that he's going to officially become a Demon Lord. And when that's made with blank stares and confusion, he then further explains how he's actually going to announce that he's a Demon Lord. He's already a Demon Lord, but now he's going to go announce it to the world and get everybody's attention that, hey, I'm a new Demon Lord. Everybody should pay attention to me. Hakuryu realizes that the reason Rimuru is actually doing this is to actually get the attention of the various Demon Lords around the world, to actually get their attention and more or less pick a fight with them, because they don't very much care kindly to the fact that people apparently people can't just go around declaring they're Demon Lords without proof. So obviously he's going to paint a target on his back on purpose. And the reason Rimuru is doing this is so that he can actually get the attention of Clayman, who obviously already has the target on Rimuru's back and wouldn't mind getting his hands dirty to actually try and deal with Rimuru out of the gate. Rimuru's entire plan is to just kind of use that as a way to actually try and rescue Carrion. And then proceeds to lay out his plan about how he's going to leave he's going to leave Rigor to actually meet with all of his associates to the west, so that they can actually kind of formulate an army and actually go and rescue Carrion. So he asks the three Basketeers to actually go ahead and conserve their strength, since as he points out, they all need their strength for when the moment actually happens. So they actually should rest and conserve their strength. And then finally, he's going to try and take over the kingdom of Falmouth, and to do that, he asks Shion, Mulim, and Yom to actually go and interrogate them. Mainly because he asked Shion initially, but he doesn't feel like she would actually be able to be gentle enough with them, and show restraint. So he sends Yom and Mulim to supervise, or at least that's what's implied to happen. But in case, as Rimuru is preparing all of that and actually laying all of that out, he's actually interrupted by Fuse, who barges into the room and is kind of and admits that he actually heard what had happened. Saw several people actually dead in the street, which Rimuru tries to explain aren't actually dead. And remarks that he actually brought 50 soldiers with him, and that he notices that that Falmouth's armies actually haven't arrived yet, but that he's more than willing to help Rimuru if he can. At which point Rimuru proceeds to explain that they already dealt with it. And Fuse, after a while, starts to realize that Rimuru was actually ascended to a Demon Lord, and then Yom just tells him to go take a bath in the hot springs, and Rimuru points out that since the soldiers came all this way anyway, they might as well be pampered on for a little bit. So he then prepares to meet with all the soldiers and make sure that they're actually well cared for. But as he's talking to Fuse and sorting everything out with him, Rimuru actually senses Rimuru is actually informed by Raphael that there's actually another force coming to Tempest. And sure enough, it's Gazelle Dwargo and his Winged Pegasus Knights. So Rimuru goes out to actually meet him, but before he actually goes to do that, he then proceeds to tell Raphael to only inform him about people that are actually hostile toward him, pointing out that it's kind of a hassle for him to be informed all the time, and Raphael reluctantly agrees to do that. At which point he meets with Gazelle Dwargo, who actually congratulates Rimuru on actually becoming a Demon Lord and formally shakes his hand in congratulations. But as he's actually meeting with Gazelle Dwargo, another group actually shows up, and Rimuru actually doesn't sense them because he literally just told Raphael not to do that. So he then proceeds to rescind his previous offer and tells Raphael to actually inform him about everybody that's coming anyway. So that order worked out for about 5 seconds until people actually showed up. But in any case, the new group of people who showed up is led by Elalud, who is apparently a nobility from the Elf Kingdom. I don't know the name of the Elf Kingdom off the top of my head, but he shows up with a coalition and kind of greets Gazelle Dwargo like an old friend / rival, pointing out that he realizes that he's a little surprised that a coward like Gazelle Dwargo would come out of hiding and would actually come out of the ground as they walk, and Gazelle Dwargo returns that sentiment right back to him, pointing out he's surprised Elalud came down from the trees where he's so high and mighty. And obviously this is all witty banter and good fun. They obviously don't hate each other. They're just kind of poking fun at each other. They're just busting each other's chops. That's all that's happening here. But more to the point, he then proceeds to meet with Rimuru, pointing out that they actually changed his body into a homunculus so that it was less obvious that an elf was coming. And obviously Rimuru is a little bit impressed and wonders if Elalud will actually be able to teach him at some point. But in case Elalud actually extends a hand in friendship to Rimuru and is honored to meet with him. Up until Rimuru introduces himself. So yeah, as it turns out, Elalud knows of Rimuru and gets a little bit upset gets more than a little upset when Rimuru introduces himself, because according to Elalud's own words, Rimuru seduced his daughter, and then proceeds to prepare a giant magic fireball to actually kill Rimuru with. And Rimuru begins to panic, pointing out that he seems to be flying a little bit off the handle, and Raphael concludes this, pointing out that this fireball will likely wipe Rimuru off the face of the earth if it hits him. But before that can actually happen, Eren runs out and bonks dear old dad on the head. So yeah, as it turns out, Eren is Elalud's daughter, and then properly introduces him, pointing out that he's a little bit overprotective. But is still a very good dad nonetheless, and she then begins to clear up all the misinformation that he misheard about Rimuru. And Elalud points out that was one of the reasons why he actually came over to Tempest, to make sure that his daughter was okay, because he actually dropped everything just to go see if his daughter was okay. And Gazelle Dwargo points out that that's actually something a protective dad would do, so he has no comment. But in case, after realizing that Eren is likely not the only reason Elalud came to see him, he then asks Elalud why he's there again, because obviously he's there to see his daughter, but also because he seems to have a bit of an ulterior motive for doing so. And Elalud confirms this, pointing out that he would like to strike up an alliance with Rimuru, and since Rimuru is preparing to go to war with Clayman, he wants to be involved, as does Gazelle Dwargo, and both of them wind up being involved in the meeting to actually make war preparations to go up against Clayman. Which Rimuru is more than happy to accept them with, but points out that all of these people showing up is kind of wearing him out a little bit. So Yeah, and that's how this episode ends. So it starts off with Rimuru with Shion kind of sort of learning how to cook, and Rimuru introducing Veldora, and long story short, now we're going to actually see a bigger alliance between the people that Rimuru has already befriended and some new friends that have showed up out of the blue. So yeah, this is going to be interesting going into this. Now Rimuru is actually preparing to go to war against Clayman and make sure that he can't hurt anybody anymore, since obviously Clayman is the guy who's been orchestrating all of these things to actually wipe out the Jora Tempest Federation. So yeah, obviously Rimuru isn't going to take that line down. It was obviously Clayman's fault that the war happened. Obviously Rimuru isn't going to forgive for that very easily. And now because of that, Rimuru has actually formulated a plan to actually try and take down Clayman. So hopefully we're definitely going to be seeing that at some point later in the season. But for right now, that's my review of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. If you want to help support the show, then be sure to go check that out. Also, be sure to go follow me over on Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks. I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. Also, if you want to help support me even further, then be sure to check out my Twitch. I stream every Sunday, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys want to go check that out, by all means, go ahead. I'm actually streaming Utopia until I finish it. I'm working out to make my streams a little bit less high latency because of internet issues. So I don't know. Hopefully I'll have that. Sorted out for Sunday. I believe I will have it sorted out for Sunday. So hopefully you guys will go check that out and help support me, because I'm trying to get that to grow a little bit. So be sure to check that out. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to see something new, or try something completely unique that you've already seen, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!